Hi, Sophie.
Hello,
Um,
how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you? You had a good day?
Thank you. Looking forward to this evening's live.
Yeah, I think we've actually just had quite a few new members joining the group, so and a couple of people asking how to get in. So I think it's going to be a good session. Oh, here's Susan here.
Very popular.
Hi, Susan.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Hey. Sophie's a little bit pixelated.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes, everyone is here. So maybe it's me.
Oh, really?
Oh, so this is a lovely discussion. It's one of my favourite things about our subject, the uniqueness of our sketchbooks and our workbooks, or whatever we want to describe them as. I'm excited. Are we ready? Should we start our chatting?
Yeah,
discussions?
I'll squirrel into the background.
Lovely.
Just in case the comments haven't worked on the last live.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I think
Okay,
we're all
thanks
getting
for
caught up a
sharing
little bit.
that.
So I'll just give me a shout if you need me.
Okay, this is probably, we're speaking to people that will be watching this in the next few days or hours or this evening. I know lots of people come a little bit later, but welcome to you if you're watching this live, or if you are going to watch this in the next few days or weeks or even years to come. Favourite subject of mine, sketchbooks. I think Susan would agree. It's so important for our subject that we have ways to document the process in which we work, and absolutely privileged to be talking to Susan Augier, whose books I just adore. And I think we'll start with a question. In fact, go straight to it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. It's so nice to be able to do this, because I think just from looking at the sort of discussion on the Facebook site and talking to teachers, and you know, I think it is one of the things that people aren't really sure about what they should be doing.
No.
With the books.
No, there's absolutely so many reasons why that would be the case, and you know, especially if people haven't are working as teachers across many subjects or are picking up the subject for the first time. It's quite understandable that it can be described as we think of a colour as slightly grey area. So in fact, if we begin with the question of, I know that some people like to describe sketchbooks as a visual diary, so a work journal, there's also a day book, notebook, even tease and worry books. I know one of our colleagues has used that phrase in the past. So I wonder which of those best describes, Susan, how you see the use of sketchbooks in schools, in primary schools.
Well, Sophie, I don't know about you, but I think it's probably all of the above, isn't it? So that's not a very easy answer, but it actually is. You know, it is all of those things, and that is the beauty of them. And I think it is. I mean, when I was at art school, it was your visual diary. I'm sure you probably remember that too. You know, it was we didn't really talk about sketchbooks, but it was that idea of the visual diary, of keeping track of your progress, perhaps across a project or something like that. But I think it's different things to different people, and I think that each artist has to find their own way with their sketchbook, and I think again it's that idea that it's not just one thing, and I think when you're thinking about, particularly thinking about working with primary children, thinking about sketchbooks, they have so many kind of uses, don't they? And in terms of actually kind of keeping your ideas, your experiments, you know, annotating sort of little things that come and pop into your head, all of those things, and also kind of really tracking children through their sketchbook as well. So it has that use for us in primary teaching to use it as a tool to you know, look at children's progress actually across time, which I'm very sort of emphatic about. That's how we you know, assess children in art and design. It's over time. So a lovely sketchbook can last for sort of, you know, go to 1 year to the next with a child. But I think kind of making it look a certain way or calling it a certain thing then becomes a bit problematic, because then what do you put in it? And I've also heard them called art books. It's my art book, a bit like my English book, yes, or my maths book. And again, you know, that's kind of fine as a term, but as long as you don't put it in the same category as you might do your English book or your maths book or your history book, because you would be using it in a really, really different way. And I think that's hugely important to think about. I don't know, what do you think, Sophie?
Well, before, I know that you're going to give us a little demonstration later on about a practical approach to making a sketchbook, but I think that when I've seen them used in a way as exercise books, a teacher will set a project, and then that alone is the way that the sketchbook is used. But probably, I think the biggest joy and probably even learning takes place when it's not seen. And you said, don't see it as an English book, or let's not see it like that, or let's not see it as an exercise book, because actually it can be so much more. And it's probably the one subject where you can have some sort of an emotional response to the world in which we are, as opposed to a response to a set task. And it's really liberating, I think. It can be liberating and also scary to be allowed that freedom to actually put a few more things in that wouldn't perhaps be documented as a response to a lesson. And I think that is a rare and very lovely experience for students. To feel that they've got a space which is their own. So perhaps that doesn't describe what they're called, but it does get closer to some of the surprises that can go on in the art room, which don't tend to go on in other rooms. And I'm later on going to talk to you, or to ask a question, if that's possible, about feedback and how you document feedback, because that's possibly when it does get a little bit, you know, how do we document something that is more like a diary or a diarised response to the world in which we are. But maybe we should come to that later.
I think we can come to that a little bit later, which would be really interesting. But I also really think that, you know, using what we have to remember, I mean, it's quite interesting, is it, that kind of question. One of my books has just been republished this week, Sophie, so I'm very excited about that. And I'm going, The Broad and Balanced.
Oh wow, yes.
Very excited, and I've been invited to a book launch for it. I got asked them some questions, and they said, what are the kind of big issues do you think in education? What's your big questions, and why are they your big questions? And one of my big questions was, you know, that one that we keep having to return to: what is education for? And I would also say, who is education for, and who is your sketchbook for? Because I say it's for the child. And when we talk a little bit later about that question that some people have asked about whether we should mark a sketchbook, I think we can go back to that idea that the book is the child's book, and give them actually the ownership over that book.
I think that's absolutely, you've shared very well what its potential can be. Do you want to, should we go to a little practical?
Oh, I'd love to. my students when they come to my I actually do it in my painting session, and we go and do some sketching outside, and I say to them that, you know, often you won't have a sketchbook if you're teaching in Key Stage 1. It's not necessary, so you know you won't always have a sketchbook if you're lower down the school, but that does not mean that you shouldn't use a sketchbook, because I think from day one children should be using sketchbooks. And a lovely way to make a sketchbook, and again, this is also really good if you're going on a trip somewhere and you don't want to take your big heavy sketchbook with you, but you do want to take a sketchbook, so you could take a little portable sketchbook. And this is with a piece of paper like this. I've got an A3 piece of paper, and I'm going to fold it in half. If you are watching and you are one of my students who's done this, you'll be going, oh yeah, we know this one. I'm going to fold it and really going to make that crease very sharp. So I'm going to fold it back on itself now and do it the same the other way, so it folds easily both ways. It's a little bit like origami. And then I'm going to open it up and I'm going to fold it again in half like this. Sophie, you should be doing this along with me, shouldn't you, really?
Should have done.
And again, make that crease really, really, you know, so that it's very, very crease. You can run your fingernail down it if you've got a fingernail. I know teachers don't have long fingernails because we work so hard, don't we? And then fold it back on itself again and do the same again. So it's really, really flexible piece of paper. It bends both ways easily. Now I'm going to hold it up portrait style, which I always sort of think is Word took off us, didn't they? Portrait and landscape. It's actually an art term, folks. And I'm getting my scissors now, and I'm going to cut half up from center line to the middle. So now what I've got is like a piece of paper, looks like a pair of baggy trousers there. Okay. So now I'm going to fold my paper, the top half, over the flappy bits at the bottom, so it's like that. I've got the flaps on towards me, and then I'm going to fold it again away from myself. So now I've got the two flaps on the top side, and it looks like a bird. Then the last thing you do is flip one of those flaps right over the top. So then you have a perfect little book with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages.
Oh,
That isn't that absolutely lovely?
very good. Very, very.
Yeah, so it's really, really great to do that if you're going on a trip somewhere and you want the children to do some sketching on your trip. Like I say, you don't want to take heavy stuff with you. That can just kind of easily fit into your lunchbox, can't it, with a few sort of pencils and things. So that's a really, really nice thing to do. I will just tell you that every single time I do this, one of the students always says, oh gosh, I've done it wrong because one of my pages is stuck together. And then I have to say, well, what would happen if it wasn't stuck together? And they go, oh yeah, it would all fall to bits.
Lovely.
So,
Very
yeah.
lovely, it really is. The quickest that you could make, isn't it?
It's so quick and so great. And you can use that, you know, start in the nursery using sketchbooks with children. Of course, it doesn't actually have to even be a book, does it? You could just use, you know, get some little bags. Not this one. This is from Whiskey and Co. But you wouldn't have that, of course. You'd have, you know, but you could get some little, you know, little bags for children, and just put their, you know, things that they collect and drawings in their own little bag. How lovely would that be? Oh my God, I want that. You can even cut little kind of cardboard labels, stick a hole in them, put a little ribbon or Hessian, or even, you know, even a pipe cleaner, you know, you could just stick that through just to keep them together, and then you've got a nice little, and then, you know, draw.
Oh, that's so good. I guess you could use scraps, can't you, as well? You've got your labels, but in fact you could easily just be using scraps of paper to
absolutely
bunch together.
Absolutely. So all different types of paper. I mean, even patterned paper or wallpaper, you know, you can cut it and, you know, with a little hole punch or something, get some cardboard. You know, I'm sure everybody's got those Amazon packets that come with all of those. That would be great to use just as the covers, wouldn't it? And, you know, tie that together with some ribbon or something, and Bob's your uncle, you've got a beautiful sketchbook. And also, when you're filling up your sketchbook, what amazing display that's going to be as well, with the children's own handmade sketchbooks and all their beautiful work inside it. So that's my little demonstration. I hope
it's lovely. I keep a sketchbook, and sometimes I use lined paper. This is my sketchbook. It's I put things in there. I do drawings. I find things that I like. I stick in anything that inspires me all the time. And you know, that's just literally a circle, but it's just such a beautiful circle. So I use it as a collage book as well as a drawing book. And I think in that sense that it expresses how it is a diary of my travels, of my day, of what I even see on the screen. I think that's just such an important way to we think that a diary is a written word, but in fact when you start creating tearing things out or finding things of interest, you will even find yourself, children will start to write notes about it. So it does improve all these areas and all these dexterity. It will these lovely encounters with the world, and just to put them into a visual diary is a very nice way of bringing our visual language into the everyday.
Absolutely. And also, I mean, we're so lucky with, you know, we just have to press a button now and we've kind of got images of artist diaries that, you know, we don't have to go very far or try very hard. Lovely examples of,
if I may, just sort of, this is a book that NSEAD published quite a few years ago, but what it shares, oh, you've got it, here we go, look at us both. Well, you take us through that. You please share how
you do it. Yeah, no, you do it.
Well, no, I mean, for me, I love the way that it's got, on one page it will have a scientist, and it shows how a scientist, or how a musician will write, or an architect, or an actor. That page is an actor's notebook, how people give notes to each other, and how they'll work with all sorts of different people. And then there's pages, you know, of real sketchbooks that people have been using in their profession. So it really helps explain how, no matter what your role in the world is going to be, how useful this can be. And then it also does show sort of this one's not unlike, this example is not unlike the little labels as well that you were just showing and sharing, but it will also show your students other examples from primary schools. This is a page from several pages from primary schools, and just give your teachers, if you're subject leader, that would give your teachers some examples, because they may never have diarized or used a sketchbook or notebook visually. So it would just show how important this is. It will show everybody in the school just how vital it can be for some people to be able to use visual language instead of written language.
All the time, absolutely. And of course, in the world of science, you know, there's so much of it is actually visual. You know, and that kind of problem solving, you know, you have to do those little diagrams, you have to kind of try and work things out through in a visual way.
Yes.
So it's not really, it's giving children life skills, actually. I would suggest. Sounds very, but I think it's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
But even actually, really a question is, do you think it's helpful for teachers, for subject leaders, or for teachers to use a sketchbook with their students?
I absolutely, that would be my dream, wouldn't it, for every teacher to have their own sketchbook and get it out at the same time as the children. That would be such a good model. Personally, I do that. I have a sketchbook. This is my work sketchbook.
Wow. Let's see.
It's really messy. But it's, that's me. I am sort of messy in my sketchbook. So but I actually do my planning in my sketchbook. So my plans are in my sketchbook, but it also gives me room to sort of to scribble down things and draw things and keep all that going at the same time as work. So it's my work sketchbook, but I have another sketchbook that I kind of do at home when I have a moment. But actually to use a sketchbook, and the students see me getting my sketchbook out, and sometimes I will, when they're doing something, I will also do it. So I think being a role model is really important. I think it's a really important principle that you present yourself as an artist as well when you're working with children, that you are all artists together, and that's a really good model, I think, for children.
I think also that sort of touches upon, you can have a sketchbook for different reasons, and we had a fantastic HMI for art and design quite a few years ago, in Middleton, and he showed examples of how teachers even use their sketchbooks to record progress of their students in a range of subjects, so sort of like a visual record of the progress. And that, call it sketchbook, call it progress book, call it whatever, do you think that's, how would that be? In a way, it sounds like you do have sketchbooks for different reasons, or do you think that could be a helpful use of a sketchbook? Or?
I do. I think what we have to really remember is that we're not mini secondary schools, and sketchbooks don't have to kind of follow a kind of pattern, if you like. But I think definitely you use your sketchbook to help the child record what they've done. So they take photographs of their work and print them out, stick them in their sketchbook, and draw around it, or write about it, or write a reflection at the end of the lesson, just like you do in other subjects. What have you learned today? And actually capture that learning, especially with older, maybe Key Stage 2 children. Year 2 children can easily do something like that too. And but actually, and then it does become a record of that progress, doesn't it? And yet it's not kind of formal. There's nothing formal about it, because it doesn't need to be. But you have got that record of the child's thinking as well. And I think they're very, very useful in terms of that.
You made the distinction there, and rightly so, that this is not a sketchbook which would be perhaps seen as a secondary school as part of a progress towards assessment. So can I ask you that question, the perennial question of feedback? And may I ask, how would you give feedback, or would you even record feedback given to students around pupils around their sketchbooks?
Yeah, so again, you're not marking a sketchbook on the record.
Yes, that's there.
And again, it's kind of, I love the idea of having kind of learning conversations in art. And I would think that you would use the sketchbook as a tool to facilitate your conversation with the child, and that's how you would feedback in that conversation. And I think that is a more positive way of using a sketchbook as a way to ask the child about their thoughts and feelings, and what they've learned, and what they're struggling with, and all of that stuff, and that's how I would suggest would be a good way to use it. And children can do that with each other. You can set up learning conversations between the children, actually, well, can't you? I have my spies in school, you see. My third years are all doing their dissertation at the moment, and they're all doing their art projects, art research. And one of my students, I don't know if I think she's on this Facebook site, but I won't name her, and she said she's in this school, and she said it's one of those schools where everyone has to do the same thing, you know, in all the lessons, and the art books all have to look exactly the same. So that is not a good model. And that, because you can't tell anything. If all the work has to look a certain way, how can you tell what a child is learning or what they're understanding? You can't, because all they will say is, well, you told me to do that. That's why I've done it. Whereas if it's a child's own work and their own thoughts down there, their own drawings down there, their own things stuck in that they think are really interesting, then you've got the lever for a conversation with that individual. And so that's, you know, I would like to think that that's how they would be used. Yeah.
And finally, do you think that I mean, a learning journey through school is obviously it's year by year, but do you like seeing that a sketchbook can be carried through from, say, year 1 to year 2? Is it something that you would you know, do you think the importance of having a fresh start at the year 2 new sketchbook, or actually is it no, travel with the child?
Yeah, absolutely, travel with the child, and again, that child, if it is traveling through the school with them, got a nice big one, hopefully, then, you know, the child can look back and go, oh my goodness, you know, that 12 months ago, look at what I was doing, and now look what I'm doing. So it's a fantastic tool for the child's own understanding of their development too.
And do you have sort of, you know, peer-to-peer discussion, or are they such private books in your, you know?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? I would say probably in a school context, it's not that private, is it? Let's face it. And I think that, you know, I think that absolutely, why not get the sketchbooks out and have a look at each other's? I mean, just like art school, you know, you're all looking at each other's sketchbooks, aren't you? And getting ideas and sharing ideas, and that's part of children's learning, isn't it? Actually,
it is discovering where we are with our own learning, but also where we are with our use of visual language and being subjected a little by our peers rather than our teachers.
Yeah, also a fantastic tool to have that kind of homeschool link as well. You send the sketchbook home for the weekend with a, you know, a little task for the family. How great would that be?
Absolutely. It beats sending through other things home. So Diane, we've been chatting away, and that's
gone really fast.
Have we finished?
It's gone really quickly, hasn't it? We've got a couple of questions. The comments aren't working in here again, annoyingly. I've been trying to figure out what's going on, but I can't, unfortunately. But Gerd has asked, is it okay to write feedback, adult or peers, on sticky notes with an option for the owner of the book to keep it or leave it?
I think that would be a good idea. If you really want to say something, and I do think, you know, why not as a teacher? I mean, children love getting a little message from their teacher, don't they? And I think it would be a lovely idea to kind of put a little sticky note in saying, Charlie, I love this drawing, or whatever, you know, but a little personal note from your teacher on a sticky note, I think, is absolutely fine.
Excellent. And MJ's asked, can you please share your thoughts on handwriting, grammar and spelling in sketchbooks? And I'll just mute because I've got a shouting toddler in the background.
I think I might have to mute myself actually on this one, because I would just say, please. It's not the place for correcting. It's not the place. I'm sorry if that's upsetting to everybody, but I think there's plenty of other places where that can happen, and it, you know, as a you know, I'm early years, I'm all into emergent writing, so and also you might even make up your own art language, and then how are you going to mark that in terms of SPAG? That's a great question, though. I'm really glad that got asked. Yeah.
We have in AD, this most recent AD, I have the wonderful jewelry designer, an interview with students, primary students mostly, interviewed Alex Monroe, who's a jewelry designer, and his quote was just so lovely. He has 2 sketchbooks, one that he travels with and one more for working out and working ideas. But he says sketchbooks are brilliant and fun and should be just for you, so you can really muck about and keep secrets in there. That is that's straight from the jeweler, the wonderful, hugely amazing, inspirational jeweler. And if he put secrets in there, although he did show us on Facebook.
That's great. Perfect to finish on, I think, don't you?
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your inspiration that comes from all the schools you go into and all the people you work with, and thank you so much for inspiring us today.
Oh no, thank you. I hope it's been useful for people watching and people to watch.
Yeah.
They can always ask us more questions on Ask NSEAD. Anyway.
Definitely do that. Fantastic.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone.
NSEAD. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.